yes, there's going to be the extremists out there that have a Marxist, socialist type agenda, but there are a lot of people that actually understand some of these problems.
Well, a lot of people here are not. There are very few Marxists here.
A system that works, whether you call it capitalism or not, it doesn't matter.
So bottom line,
capitalism does work until government interferes, and the problem is the government interferes, things get bad, and then the government blames it on capitalism. It's not capitalism's fault.
Who wrote Wealth of Nations? Who wrote Wealth of Nations?
Adam Smith.
And what did he say about government intervention when the market fails? When you have market failure, what does he say about government intervention?
Well, they always blame the government.
Oh, going back to the facts. Wait, isn't he not the godfather of modern day economics?
He is the founder of economics.
Okay, so what did he say when there's market failure? What did he say about market failure?
What did he say?
Government intervenes. Government has to intervene.
No, government intervenes to cause the failure. That's the problem.
No, that's not what he said.
Yes,
no, you know I'm right.
No, I don't know you're right. I don't know you're right. No, you
didn't. It's not capitalism
No.
when you have monopolies.
No,
that's anti-capitalism.
Right, but government creates.
That's the world
No,
we're living in
but
today.
it's
You have
government.
monopolies running it.
No, but government licenses the monopolies. Without government, monopolies wouldn't exist unless they were giving people the best possible
And who
deal.
owns our government right now?
Not me, yeah. But there are a lot of people that are owning the government because the government has the influence to sell.
And
that's what we're
sticking
protesting.
by the trickle-down theory that's been in place
It
it
hasn't been in place. It's gotten a
It
bad
absolutely
name.
has been in place.
No.
What's the federal tax rate for the 1% compared
Yeah,
to
I'm paying half my income in taxes.
Is it not the lowest
No.
it's been in over 20
No,
years?
if I
Is it
earn
not?
no, let me correct
It's
you.
not?
If I earned my money 30 years ago, I would pay a much lower tax than I do today. Hold on. No, if I earned my money 30 years ago, I would pay a much lower total tax than I pay today because I have far fewer deductions and exemptions than were abound back then. I'm paying half my income in federal taxes. That is enormous. And 100 years ago, the entrepreneurs paid no federal taxes, and that's when we built a vibrant economy. That's when we created the whole middle class. It was because we were free.
Unions built the middle class.
No, they didn't.
Unions built
No. Unions helped destroy all the industries that they infected.
Capitalists, like
Workers were paid a lot more before
have
unions.
morals and acts morally and not immorally.
Capitalism is moral.
Class.
Capitalism is the only moral system. Socialism is immoral.
But you still need to harness greed.
That's why you have the conditions that exist today. It's a third world economy.
How can you expect morals out of a society that was built on greed and hope?
Well, there's nothing immoral about greed.
What?
Right? I mean, everybody wants things.
I kind of agree with that, but don't you think it should be kept in check?
The free market keeps it in check.
No, it does not, because the free market allows them, especially at this point where people are making so much money.
I mean, but remember, in a free market, people are greedy, but they're also fearful. They want to make money, but they're afraid of losing money.
In a freer market,
the government comes in and subsidizes the losses. That's what lets greed cause problems when the government takes away the risk.
Well, yes, when they do subsidize the risk, that does cause a problem. But don't you think that in itself, the free market on its own, when it gets to a point, people are just going to try to maximize profit, regardless of the risk.
But how do you maximize profits in a free society?
It depends. It depends what sector
Well,
you're in. But the way they did it here, was to take people's mortgages.
No, but that's government. That's government intervention with subsidized
No,
mortgages.
it's private firms here
but
that
the government was
packaging
backing
people's mortgages.
Because the government guaranteed them.
And they had nothing to do with asking the government to do that.
If a businessman wants to maximize his profits without government help, without special perks, what do they have to do? They have to figure out what consumers want and find the most efficient way to give it to them.
Well, in the financial sector, they don't really deal with consumers. They deal just with their shareholders.
I deal with consumers who want my help, but yes, there are a lot of financiers who do nothing but speculate with money they get from the Fed on products that are insured by the government. That is not capitalism. That is destroying capitalism.
So why are you against
So you should be here with us.
Why are you against unions? I'd like to understand that.
Well, I'm not against unions. What I'm against is when unions have special laws that help enable them to extort money from employers and help drive them out of business. I mean,
corporations have special laws?
No,
Corporations don't have.
no, they're not doing the same thing. Look,
How many people here have an offshore bank account that they don't pay taxes on?
It's not a coincidence that all the jobs. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that all the companies that were heavily unionized are the ones that have gone bankrupt. The unions played a big role in bankrupting these companies.
So do you
but
walk away?
But I will tell you
So
something.
walk away from a system walk away from a system that was working because it had
But-
faults. So
but
to
I
give
will
up
tell you-
completely and
but-
then go pure the other side, it's a tug of war.
but
It's always been a tug of war.
I will tell
between
you.
owners and workers.
Let me tell you.
And when you give
Hold
up
on.
the rope of
Listen,
the organized
Ford.
worker,
Hold on. Ford Motor Company paid its workers more money before there were any unions, before there was any minimum wage. Ford workers who were on the factory lines got paid more money in 1914 than they do today, adjusted for inflation.
How so?
Much more money. No, and that was because of
As I'm saying,
capitalism.
just
He
because
paid
there's
his
a problem
workers.
with the system doesn't mean you try not to work within the system and fix it.
No, no,
You don't
what-
walk away from capitalism because you feel like it's broken.
No, no.
We try to fix it.
No,
right?
but capitalism
So don't
is.
say unions walk away from
Capitalism
unions
doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be restored. We don't have it
can only be
anymore.
fixed when you take your hands
Yeah,
off.
we don't have it because there's monopoly.
Right.
No, no, it's not.
We don't have
monopoly. We don't have it because we have too
Really?
much government regulation.
But it's also the monopolies. It's the government-enabled monopolies like the Fed.
Wait,
Why can't it be both? Well, like I don't understand.
Well,
your
what?
argument.
Okay, first
Like,
of all,
you're saying, like,
what monopoly
there
are you
no
talking?
more-
No, what monopoly are you talking about?
Do you feel like Chase has kind of taken over?
Well, Chase,
a
well,
bank?
they're not a
The
monopoly. There are
Fed
plenty
is
of
the
banks.
monopoly that controls it
But
all.
when you have a monopoly, government gives them a license.
There's
But,
plenty of banks.
but that's not a monopoly. There's
Doesn't have to be a monopoly, but when you're dealing with 5 banks, 3 banks, 3 or 4.
But I agree. The banks get government subsidies. I want to take those subsidies away from banks. I don't want. I don't want.
The bailout shouldn't have happened. Are you saying the bailout shouldn't have
No, I was against them at the time. They should have fought. But look, I want to get the
That's
government.
capitalism.
Look, I don't
You
want
made
the
bad
government.
decisions, you fall.
Right, I don't want
But
the
they
government.
didn't step up. I didn't hear anyone stepping up and saying, I don't want the government getting involved in these rich guys.
I stepped up. I was there. But look, I don't want the government guaranteeing your bank account. I want the banks to have to prove to you that they're sound. I don't want the government guaranteeing that account so you don't care what they do with your money. I want to get the government out of banks. That's the problem.
The problem is many Americans do not have the type of physical education that they would need to make the kind of decisions which will promote their lifestyle. And when there only is a Walmart 50 miles from your house, and you're only shopping at Walmart, and maybe you don't even know what Walmart does. Maybe you disagree with Walmart if you knew about Walmart. So what we need to do is promote education and physical education to create smart.
Yeah, well, I think you need to give the average American a little more credit. People, I think, can make the best decisions for themselves. I think people can decide for themselves better than Washington can decide. I think people will make good choices. You know, people are going to shop around. They're going to look for a bargain. They're going to try to spend as little money as possible to get as much value as they can. I have confidence in the market.
Are you okay with us importing all of our goods from and borrowing money from communist China to support those lower production rates
No, I
for the
wouldn't.
American consumer?
No, I'm not okay with it. It's terrible, and it wouldn't happen if we had a freer economy. We would produce these
We have
things
less
ourselves.
regulations today, though?
No, we have a lot more. And we have a lot.
Do we have more regulations today?
Media propaganda.
Yes, and we have a lot more than China. There's more capitalism in communist China than there is in America. That's the problem.
What's the average wage for the Chinese?
So you don't believe in minimum wage?
No, it should be
You
zero.
don't believe in minimum wage?
Absolutely not. Why
How
do you like?
feel about slavery?
I mean, but what does the minimum wage have to do with slavery?
I'm just asking if you're for it. I mean, in a capitalist society, that's ideal, right? If you
No.
don't pay your workers.
Well, actually-
on your P&L line, your employment cost is your
I'll
most
give
expensive
I'll give
line.
you a little bit
so
of
if you
history.
can
Hold on.
cut that out, you save a lot of
Slavery
money.
is bad business because slaves don't work very hard. It's much more economical to pay workers. They work a
Actually,
lot
this
harder.
country was built on the backs of
No,
slaves,
it
so they
wasn't.
actually worked pretty
No,
hard.
it wasn't. But no, it wasn't. You think there was slavery up north? No. But slavery. We had, in fact, the people South would have been better if it was paying people, but that's a whole other story. But as far as minimum wage, all the minimum wage does is set a level below which people are not allowed to work. The minimum wage just destroys employment opportunities for the unskilled workers. You know, you can't hire somebody if they don't have enough productivity.
$7.25 an hour. There's someone less skilled.
Well, first of all,
there are people that deserve less than $7.25 an hour.
well, first of all, it's not just $7.25 because you got to pay payroll taxes.
I'm a small business owner. I
so-
understand. I'll add
so-
25% on.
Yeah,
top of
so
that.
let's say $10. Yes, there are people who don't have enough productivity to be worth $10 an hour. They don't. Now, a lot of them are young. They're 15, 16, 17. But you know what? If they can get a job at $4 or $5 an hour, maybe by the time they're 20, they'll be able to make $15 or $20 an hour. But they never get their first job because we price them out of the market.
It's not true in my experience. Not at all. I would say most of the people who start at minimum wage or slightly better are in that. I don't tend to hire 15 and 16-year-olds, but definitely of the 17, 18, 19-year-old entering college age, and move up from there. I think
Look, there are plenty. Look, I went to the movies this Saturday night, and I had to wait on this long line on a Saturday night to get popcorn because there was only one person working behind the counter. Meanwhile, there were 5 other stations. There was nobody there. Now, why? Because the theater can't afford to hire anybody. You think would it be so horrible if we let them hire?
Could it be because we're in a recession still?
Because the wages are too high. They have to come down.
But
you
they
can't
have
hire somebody if it's too expensive or too high.
But wages have been stagnant.
Yeah. If you're a student and you want a job on the weekends, you don't need to support a family. You just need some extra bucks. What if you need to pay for this? It's cheaper.